Hey gang, going to talk with you a little bit today about the Smith & Wesson M&P and some of the modifications that I've done to it over the last few months and have been running it and testing it. But as everybody knows, the M&P and a few other firearms have made it to the California roster, which is very, very exciting for most. So as far as the M&P goes, California stock versus what you can do to it to make it really work for you. Now, just right off the bat, if you take a look at the offerings from Smith & Wesson, they have obviously the California compliant one now, but they also have different variants of the M&P. And just to say, speaking about this particular firearm, the M&P 2.0 4-inch version, so the compact version. If you go look at Smith & Wesson's offerings, they have various options as it relates to this particular platform. From a more traditional type trigger to a slide with no optics cut, slide with optics cut, frame with external manual safety, frame without, and so on and so forth. So just right off the bat, there are many different options that Smith & Wesson has out there. Unfortunately, those in California are relegated to just one. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit and some of the mods that I've done to mine to make it, as we like to say at TRB, not no good. Okay, first things first, gonna make sure it's clear. All right, nothing in here. All right, so let's talk about this particular firearm. When I purchased it, California compliant, all the good things. Okay, so the California compliant version has the external manual safety, and you can't see it on this one because what was done is the safety was taken off. And the void that was created by that was replaced by the frame plugs that you can buy at pretty much any store. Now, just to give a plug for our homies locally, I was able to pick up a set of frame plugs for this one from our friends over at Rifle Supply. So you can actually, if you have an M&P, they do sell those frame plugs because they know you're going to want to take that manual safety off. So they've already thought about that. And it'll cost you about like 15, 16 bucks or something like that. For a set. Now, that's one thing that I've taken off about it, and I'm just working in the frame right now. One thing I do want to highlight just right out of the box, the grip on the M&P on the 2.0 is really, really nice. You don't have to stipple it. You don't have to do anything to it. Super grippy right out of the box, and that was really, really cool to feel. Then another thing that I've done to this is the trigger. Now, the type of trigger that this comes with, it comes with like a skeletonized trigger from Smith & Wesson. And yes, we like Smith & Wesson, but triggers are not their games. So that being said, it has a more of a polymer skeletonized trigger with the a trigger safety in it. It's okay, but really nothing to write home about. However, just right out of the box though, that trigger in comparison to some other compact firearms out there in the market that you could pick up, like a Glock 19 or something, I do have to say that stock trigger is a lot more favorable. It feels a lot nicer than your standard Glock trigger or say if you buy one, an XD trigger and things like that. So while it's not like crazy nice, it's still a lot nicer than some of those triggers that you're gonna find right out of the box. So one of the things that I did with that is I changed the trigger shoe. So basically I gutted this thing, took out the internals, and I replaced the trigger shoe, the actual thing that you interact with your finger, to an Agency Arms trigger shoe. Called our friends over at Agency Arms. They were nice enough to sell me one for this one. And a couple things about the Agency trigger shoe. Apart from right off the bat, it's a lot more aesthetically pleasing than the stock trigger on this or most other triggers. So there's that. That's one of the things that I was attracted me to buy it. But at the other end, the way it interacts with the trigger bar and the internals is ergonomically better than some of the other triggers that I've tried out there, because I've tried other triggers before I decided on this one. So I had the stock and another one, and I decided on this one because apart from the aesthetics, functionality, it's really nice. So my recommendation right out of the gate is an Agency Arms trigger shoe. Now, you will not find the trigger shoe only on their website. That's something that you'll probably have to call them and request, and they can probably sell you one just by itself. So just FYI, if you go digging around the website, you're not going to find it by itself. So The other thing I did with this as far as the trigger goes is I've actually took the Apex trigger internal. So you can go to Apex Tactical Solutions and you can buy a forward reset trigger pack, okay? And it will come with its own trigger shoe and things like that. But you can buy one of those, and it comes with a variety of trigger return springs, sear springs, and others that you can actually combine or pick this spring with that spring to get ultimately to the trigger press or trigger reset that you want. So actually, if you look, you can even request this from Apex. They have a document which is actually a trigger matrix. So to get, say, the trigger press that you want, if you go down, hey, I want a 5-pound trigger press, a 4.5-pound trigger press, or whatever, okay, you can actually look through that matrix and it'll tell you what trigger return spring to work with this sear spring and so on and so forth to get that ultimate trigger press that you want. So our friends over at Apex were kind enough to send me that chart so that I was able to then combine to get the ultimate trigger press that I wanted for this. Now, I decided on a 3.9 pound trigger press on this, so not too much lighter than your standard 4-pound press. I didn't want to go much lighter than that or any lighter than that at all because I did not want to stray too far away from, say, a duty type trigger because this would be a carry type firearm. And of course, we are a defensive firearms training company, so I didn't want necessarily a race trigger on this one, just for that purpose. But you can get that trigger press down to really, really light. So depending on what your purpose is, I know a lot of folks here and in Arizona that use this particular platform for competitions, and of course, they may want to get that really light trigger press. But if that's your bag, you have the option with it with Apex. So really, really cool stuff there. So combine the Apex internals with the Agency Arms trigger shoe. Another thing on this frame before we move up to the slide is I put the Sig Sauer Foxtrot 2R weapon light on there. Now, just to be clear, it is the Foxtrot 2R, not the Foxtrot 2. There's two different variants here. The Foxtrot 2R pushes out a 800 lumens with 22,000 candela, and it is a compact light. Did some research on this, and there's a bunch of different lights out there. Yeah, I could have put Surefire X300 on there. I could even went with a Mod Light PL350 on there. Those are pretty large, full-size type weapon lights, so I would have had a larger weapon light sticking out of this thing at the end. Sure, I could have done that, but I decided not to do that. Just not what I wanted. I wanted more of a flush fit, and I wanted, at the time, I wanted the max amount of candela that I can get. Now, as far as the compact light game at the time, and this is, say, late December, early January, prior to SHOT Show. So those of you know that Mod Light has released the PL350C, which my understanding, as the time that I'm recording this video, the PL350C is not necessarily for sale on the general market yet, has not necessarily been released, but it's out there, they've made it. And it is a little bit larger than the Foxtrot 2R, so it'd stick out like this a little bit, but it is a little bit more compact, so they're trying to get into that compact game. The standard Streamlight TLR7 Alpha, actually I would have easily put a 7 Alpha on there. However, one of the things that really deterred me from doing that, your stock 7 Alpha pushes out 500 lumens with, I believe, 5,000 candela. Wasn't really attracted about the candela on that one. So ultimately I settled on the Foxtrot 2R. The only downside with the Foxtrot 2R, your holster options will be severely limited. You're now having to get into a custom holster option as far as your carry holster. Now this does and will fit into your standard Safariland holster for the M&P because it will fit into that light shaft that's in there, no problem. So if you're running more of a tactical setup with a Safariland holster, no problem. Okay, so Foxtrot 2R, this is what I decided on. It put out the max amount of lumens and candela at the time when I got this. Now, since then, we know Holosun's releasing or has released the PID, their version of the compact light. And hopefully, or maybe soon, we'll actually put this on here, one of the other guns, and actually test that out on the compact game. So, moving on, what I did with this, this slide The California version of this firearm does not come with an optics cut on the slide. So that's a Debbie Downer on this whole slide game. So options for California folks. There are a bunch of companies out there, I'm sure locally, that will cut it for you and so on and so forth. So you have that option to get the slide cut, and it's probably your only option, because trying to find a stock slide with an optics cut out there in the marketplace is really, really tough, next to impossible. You might be looking at, say, an Ed Brown slide that has an optics cut, but now you're in the $400 range just for a bare slide. And magically, a fuzzy ferret has made its way onto my shirt as I now continue to do this video. But as I mentioned a moment ago, you can buy an Ed Brown slide with an optics cut, but it's gonna be a bare slide and you're in the $400 range. Maybe not be your bag. So you can probably get your stock slide cut by a gunsmith or somebody who will do that for a lot cheaper, actually. I will give a plug to our good friends over in Arizona, Southwest Precision Arms. Those folks over there do amazing work when it comes to slide cuts. I've actually cut a bunch of slides for not only myself but clients using them. They do amazing work with that. So what they'll do is they'll take your stock slide, say on the M&P, and they will cut it, sandblast it, and then they'll Cerakote it to whatever color you want. If you want Cerakote, or if you want nitride, they'll actually do the nitride for you as well. It's a little bit more expensive, of course, to do nitride, but their pricing on this is really nice. I mean, you're in like the low $200 range for an optics cut and Cerakote with the folks over at Southwest Precision. If you're interested in that, for those of you who have, like, say, the M&P and want it cut, let us know at TRB. We can hook you up with them, or you can just look them up. They're in Goodyear, Arizona. You could probably mail out your slide, tell them what you want, and they'll just mail it back to you. So either or. So optics cut. Now, you can get the optics cut directly for, say, the RMR footprint, or you can get a general optics cut, and then you'll have to use a plate. For those of you that, for whatever reason, have the non-California version, I will tell you that Smith & Wesson provides with the firearm a set of optics plates that you can put on the slide cut to actually fit whichever, say, RMR footprint, Delta Point Pro footprint, or whatever you have. So they'll give you the plates, or again, you can get it custom cut. Now, moving on, so on this one, I actually mounted the night vision blade height optic sights. So this is a really nice 1/3 lower co-witness on this. It's actually really nice. It's really low on the window. It does not interfere one iota, but if I needed to use irons on that one, I can easily switch to irons. It does not skip a beat. And of course, we have the traditional night vision tritium on there, which we all know is great. So the tritium is nice, and it really transitions well from, say, light environments to dark environments. So put the night vision sights on there. And then lastly, one thing, and I missed this earlier on the frame, is if you take a look at the slide catch over here, there's a little bar forward over there. And that is to essentially minimize what they call the auto forward on the slide catch. So on the previous version of the M&P 1.0, apparently folks were saying that when you insert the mag, if you do it with enough force, the slide will jump, and essentially the slide catch will drop, and then your slide will automatically go forward. So what Smith & Wesson did on this version that I'm aware is there's a spring that goes laterally on this, so putting pressure on this slide catch over here. One of the reasons why it motivated me to take it out, so basically I gutted this, tapped out the bar in a lateral fashion. There's a spring in there, take it out, put the bar back in, because then it looks weird. But I took it out because one thing I noticed in its stock form as a left-handed shooter, which I am, okay, that auto forward is putting so much pressure on it, because remember, this slide catch is one piece on the actual firearm. So when you're actually putting that downward force on the slide catch, you're actually putting torsion type force on the actual slide catch on the other side to then disengage it, thereby allowing the slide to go forward. with that spring on this side, it requires an exponential amount of force in its stock configuration to send that slide forward. So for us lefties, you'd be sitting there fighting that slide catch, and it's just, well, not fun. So what I did was I went ahead and took out that auto forward reducing spring, and I have had no problems with it. And dropping that slide, not only lefty, but even if you were running it righty, dropping that slide just becomes nice and smooth, and surprisingly enough, I haven't had an issue with the slide going forward on its own, even without the spring. And I've slammed that mag in there numerous amounts of times, and I have not had an issue with the slide wanting to go forward at all, even without that auto forward reducing spring. So just a couple things to note about that. So other than that, that's pretty much what was done to this firearm. I mean, it sounds like a lot, but in reality, I feel that it's not. Just some trigger work, adding a red dot light, changing out the sights, and taking off safeties. That's pretty much what it is. So there you have it, folks. A couple modifications that you can do to your Smith & Wesson M&P, and some tidbits about it. If you bought all your mags in 2019, well, you might be part of the Freedom Week Club. At which point, check out our Unconvicted Felons t-shirts, where we celebrate our freedom here in the People's Republic of California. Front side, 2 arms logo, that's our new t-shirt line, stands for 2A Rights Matter. Check it out, buy your t-shirt today.